You reigned for only 8 years, but you filled the treasury so abundantly that no sultan who came after you could break your record for 400 years. Here is the genius who filled the Ottoman treasury. You are a Sanjak Bey in Trabzon, on the shores of the Black Sea. Perched atop the city walls, you are a young prince with grand dreams for your empire. You are Prince Selim. Your father is still alive and firmly seated on the throne, and you know that this means nothing to you, because in the Ottoman Empire, the throne is not inherited, it is earned. There are no written rules, no line of succession, no guarantees. There is only one equation. Whoever reaches the throne first blocks the path for everyone else. There is only one person who rules the empire. Most people fear this equation. Selim lays it out on the table. He examines it as if it were a problem to be solved. In your youth, you govern an important province in Trabzon, which was conquered by your grandfather, Fatih Sultan Mehmed. A handful of soldiers, a small town, a coastal city. But you see this coastal city not as a prison, but as a marketplace. Trabzon is a port city. Goods coming from the east pass through here. Taxes are collected here. Even in those early years, you learn that a land's value lies not in its size, but in the trade that flows through it. The Safavid power growing to the east is your neighbor. You wait and watch. You take note of your father's gentleness and your brother's ease. You forget nothing. Your father, Bayezid II, the 8th Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, is growing old, and you are aware of this. He wants to leave the throne to his favorite son, but that son is not you. And here, you do what most people could never do. Rather than submitting to fate and waiting your turn, you defy your father. Your first move ends in defeat, so you retreat. You seek refuge in the north. This is where your story should have ended. A prince in exile is often forgotten, but you are no ordinary prince. You refuse to be forgotten. You watch from afar, wait, and patiently arrange your chess pieces. For you, defeat is not an end. It is merely a delay, but it is not over, because there is one thing you have learned. Power is not graciously offered. Power is taken. You return, but this time, not with a sword, but with your wits. You take the pulse of the army. You learn what the janissaries want, to whom they are loyal, and who can be bought, so that you can take the necessary steps and decide what must be done. And you bring the army to your side, and you succeed. You depose your father, Bayezid II, and in 1512, you ascend the throne. And as your father steps down from the throne, he curses you. He says, "O son, may your sword be sharp, but may your life be short." You are 42 years old when you ascend the throne. You have become the 9th Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. And when you look around, you see no friends. You see only your future rivals. Every name surrounding the throne, every man who could one day raise an army against you, is a risk to you. You are well aware of this situation. Although many of your brothers had passed away before you ascended the throne, those still alive make attempts to claim the throne they believe is rightfully theirs. They are no longer your brothers. They are all your rivals. And to eliminate the risk, you eliminate your rivals. Because you have long since learned the first rule of absolute power, you will leave no rivals behind. Now you've taken over an entire empire. But what exactly have you taken over? A void, a vast void. The treasury is depleted. The eastern border is crumbling. A land that yields no taxes, where loyalty has crumbled. And for you, this is a vital threat. Because you know this, for a ruler, money is an army is power. If the treasury is empty, the throne is empty too. So where can you find money? You'll find it in the land. You'll find it on the trade routes. You'll find it in every tax-paying city, every passing caravan, every piece of gold that changes hands. You may look like a warrior, but your mindset is that of an accountant, cold, calculating. Every move must have a return. In 1514, you march eastward. The road is long and arduous. Your army grows weary. You do not stop. You know that a ruler's retreat saps the courage of 1,000 soldiers. At Chaldiran, you face the Safavid army. You have cannons and firearms on your side. Opposing you are horses and courage. The outcome is clear from the start. After all, you are one of the leading powers in weapons technology of your time. The eastern border falls silent, and the threat within Anatolia is crushed. But this victory does more than just secure a border. it does something deeper. It opens the trade routes of the East. The routes traveled by the silk caravans are now under your control. Money begins to flow into your state's treasury. You enter Tabriz. You gather the city's artisans, masters, and merchants. Knowing that a region's wealth lies not in its land, but in its people, you act accordingly. You bring them to your own capital. Instead of plundering a city, you extract its brain and transplant it to your side. But you know this isn't enough. The real prize lies even further south. That is the place where sack after sack of gold will be added to your treasury. Egypt. The Mamluk Sultanate is based there. And the Mamluks are not merely an army. The Mamluks are money itself, because the world's spices, silk, and gold pass through those lands. All trade between the East and the West flows through Mamluk customs posts. Whoever controls those routes controls the world's coffers. You see this with a merchant's cold-blooded clarity. You want land, yes, but what you truly want is the river flowing beneath that land. The river of money. You head south, you cross the desert. Thirst, heat, and exhaustion are the hardships of this journey. Many commanders consider this route madness. You see it as an opportunity. You arrive from where no one expects you, at Murtidabuk, then at Ridania. You leave the Mamluk forces behind. And when you entered Cairo in 1517, you did not merely capture a city. You seized the lifeblood of world trade. You have thus taken the most crucial step toward filling your state's empty treasury to the brim. Now the spice route is yours. Syria, Egypt, and the Hejaz are yours. Every piece of gold that once flowed into the Mamluk treasury now flows into yours. Even Venice begins to pay you the tax it once paid to the Mamluks. Think about it. A caravan sets out from India. It travels hundreds of kilometers, crossing deserts and seas, and with every step it takes, for every sack of spices on its back, it leaves a share at every customs post it passes through. All of those shares now flow into a single treasury. You didn't just win a single battle, you seized the world's most profitable trade monopoly. At this point, you have completed one of history's fastest rises to wealth. You inherited an empty treasury. Within 8 years, you filled it to the brim. And this is where things get interesting. You've amassed all this money, but you haven't even been able to spend it. You're far from ostentation. You eat only one kind of food. You use wooden plates. The mountain of gold surrounding you does not change your way of life, because for you, money is not a source of pleasure. Money is power, and power is not meant to be spent, but to be accumulated. You hoard gold not with the eye of a merchant, but with that of a hunter. Those who spend are weak. Those who hoard wait, and those who wait are the ones who will one day determine everything. For you, a full treasure is a weapon more powerful than an unsheathed sword. You seal the door to the treasure, and you leave behind a promise. You say, "Let my grandchild, who fills this treasure more than I have, seal the door with his own seal. If he cannot fill it, let my seal remain on the door." This is a challenge. A silent, cold, arrogant challenge, and history provides the answer. No Ottoman ruler who comes after you will be able to fill that treasure as much as you did. For hundreds of years, your seal will remain on the door of the state treasury. You will become the wealthiest sultan of the Ottoman Empire. Think about it. You'll remain on the throne for 8 years, just 8 years, and for the next 400 years, no one will be able to break your record. In such a short time, you'll usher in your empire's golden age. This is the true face of absolute power. The higher you rise, the more isolated you become. Everyone around you is either a tool or a threat. You've won it all. You silenced the East, conquered the South, seized the world's trade routes, and filled the treasury to the brim. You left not a single name around you capable of challenging you. But there is one thing you can never defeat: time. 8 years. A lifetime is short. For an empire, it's but a spark. It was enough to redraw the boundaries of empires. It was enough to turn the treasury into a legend. But it wasn't enough to keep you alive. At the very moment when you are at your strongest, when you control everything, when no rival remains, a minor ailment strikes you down, a wound on your back. If you'd been living a few centuries later, it would have been a simple wound. But in your time, it was powerful enough to send you to your grave. All those armies, all that gold, all that boundless power, they were useless against this tiny thing. In 1520, while you were still only 50 years old, that colossal shadow quietly recedes. What remains? What you left to your son remains? A full treasury, a powerful army, a subdued land. That son will go down in history as Kanuni. With the treasury you filled, he will establish the empire's golden age. But you, the one who made this possible, never got to see that era with your own eyes. This is the true legacy you left behind: a sealed door, a fortune behind it, and a question. A person can possess everything there is to possess. They can leave all their rivals in the dust. They can lay their hands on the world's treasury. They can turn an empty treasury into the world's richest. But what good is all of this if there's no time to enjoy it? For you, it's nothing more than a beautiful legacy for the generation that will come after you. Perhaps absolute power gives a person everything, except for one thing: it doesn't give them more time. The seal on the door is still there. It's been a long time since you left, but the gold doesn't wait for its owner.